right, good. I did the same thing.
Yeah. There you go. All right.
Word.
How are you, man?
We're good.
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 What you been up to?
Honestly, been kind of all over the place. Just got back from Vegas last week. Connor fought on fight night, the Cannonier Rodriguez card. His second fight in the UFC. So I've been with him since looking for a fight. Like following his journey throughout that. So another fight week. Like it's always an interesting kind of like experience. Like you go into those kinds of things and it's like I feel like I just came out of like a portal.
Yeah.
Like this past week, it's like getting back to real life is like so weird because you're so like dialed in and focused on like them and like what's going on with them, making sure like their fight week and their like mental's all good.
Yeah.
And trying not to get in the way of that. So it's just like you kind of forget like there's
Yeah.
a whole world back home once you get back and you're like, okay,
For sure.
kind of like get back into the flow of things and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's just definitely been like settling in the past week.
Yeah.
Getting ready for hopefully some nicer weather, spring and summer.
Hey, it was nice the other day. It
Yeah.
was real nice.
I just got a drone. Like one of the guys that goes to the basement and trains at Connor's. He gave me a drone like to shoot for his business. He's like,
That's
hey, I
sick.
bought it. I don't use it. You want to try it out? And I was like, finally, it was a perfect day.
Yeah.
Brought that thing out. So I'm excited to start doing a little bit of that too. That'll be fun.
I had a drone about a year or two ago, and I was doing like, West Island.
Yep.
Like that restaurant like Off the Hook, and it's
Yep.
like a bridge, the causeway and stuff. So I went out to like kind of where the lighthouse and shit is, and it's like absolute like peak of like where the beach is. And I took the drone up and I was doing like a panoramic kind of shot, and this one was a safety drone, so it went up certain height and then it would come all the way back down if you went past the threshold, right? This shit went forever. It
Just watch it.
I literally, the worst thing was like, it was like obviously like ones where you hook your phone up and
Yep.
then you can see the video, but the video cut out at a certain point.
Yeah.
So it was just like watching it just fly away into the sunset. And I was like, well, that's probably the nicest way it could have gone.
Yeah,
but
I had a good ending.
yeah, so I do miss that thing though. Shooting with drones is sick. Like,
Random story. One of my friends that I worked with, he used to work for On the Water, which is like they do like fishing shows and stuff. So he's on boats, like basically shooting on these fishing boats and whatnot. Took his drone up and they were like, hey, while we're moving, like the actual company was like, don't fly the drone.
Yeah.
And then like his producer was on there. He's like, hey, dude, this is gonna be a sick shot. Like, I think you should put the drone up. He's like, I don't know if I should put the drone up. Like, told me not to do it. And then he puts the drone up, and they're getting the shot. He's like, oh, this is sick. And he's like bringing it into land, and then it just like auto landed. So it's like coming close to the boat, and he's just watching it slowly just go right into the water.
my
They just
God.
like, we can't do
that
anything.
is so painful.
Like, we told you not to put the drone up. when the boat's
What
moving.
happened with that? Was it, you think it was like the wind or just like it connection?
I think
cut?
it was like the auto landing kind of thing. It kind of sensed it
Yeah.
was coming down. The GPS, like there's so many like layers to like those things.
Yeah,
So I
the
think
only
it just kind of like read it and
The only time I ever used auto landing was when I already had it like right above the ground. Like I wouldn't trust it from like, cause I flew over water like countless times. I used the thing a lot.
Yep.
I flew it over like Profile Rock.
Yep.
I took it out over like, I put it in danger already.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like one of the most chill spots I could have taken.
Yeah,
Weather
just
wasn't bad
kept
either.
going.
Wasn't windy. It was just a nice night. And
I
I
had
just,
to catch one in my hand once.
Oh
It
my-
was just like, he's like, hey, just keep your hand out. Keep your hand out. I'm like, dude, I don't want to keep my hand out. This
Yeah.
thing's getting real close. And then it just landed and stopped. I was like, okay, all right. I'm
my
like,
first day with my drone, I flew it out in the backyard, caught it, and I skimmed my finger. So I never touched it
he's
again
like, oh,
until.
you're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, are you sure?
I would never trust that shit again.
And that was actually in Miami. That was like my first fight week. It was Ian, who I was shooting with. He had a drone, and like we were at like their Airbnb, which was in this like condo. So it was like 14th, 15th floor, like right next to the water. Like literally, like there was just a walkway, and there's a pool, a walkway, and then just Miami's like islands. So it's just water from there. So he's like, oh, I'm gonna get a drone shot. And he's like, oh, keep your hand out. I'm like, dude.
That's
I'm like, we're like 15 floors up right
keep
now.
your
This is
hand
not
out
a
over the
good
ledge.
idea.
Like, nah.
This is not a good idea, but it worked out. That's okay.
Are you going to Miami for Mitch's fight?
I don't. not planning on it right
No.
now. I'll see what comes up. Like, it's kind of like honestly a good time just to go to Miami in general because it's in between my girlfriend and my birthday. So
Oh
it's
shit,
like,
little celebration.
maybe you could like make it a little trip because she'd probably enjoy that, and meet up with them and shoot a little bit. It's Mitch's second fight and whatnot, and like Connor has had me with him on fight weeks forever.
Yeah.
Mitch has never really had me there for like a full fight week. I've been there fight night and like other times like training, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
just to bring like just to come in on hit like a random fight week in a big card like that too. Like I'd
Yeah.
rather like him not have those kind of distractions like,
Yeah.
out of nowhere kind of thing too. And that's obviously his decision too. But like when it comes to it, it's like he just got his call up. He wants to focus on fighting. He wants to stay in the UFC. He's got a big fight. He's got a good name too. A guy who's been around, had some great fights. So it's like really make a statement in that division. So it's like let him rock out in Miami and enjoy it because that was like Miami's like one of the sickest places.
Yeah.
Like for like that,
What stadium would that be in?
it's at the Kaseya Center, I think it's called. So it's where the Miami Heat play.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Sick.
like
Yeah.
I didn't get to actually go to Rob's fight out there, like, but we were probably like half a mile away. We went to one of the sports bars to watch it, and like we left to go walk down there, and it was just like mobs of people right on the water. Like we went there for the official weigh-ins and stuff, so it was really sick spot there too.
Rob killed it in his last fight, huh?
Yeah, that was awesome to see.
16-0 prospect, and he just
that whole situation is crazy too because we were in Vegas for Connor's fight. So Tyson is Connor's coach, also manager, Rob's manager as well. And just like Tyson just like orchestrated that fight too on top of that, like where it's just like he had no opponent and basically UFC is like, oh yeah, just like stay ready. Like we'll see what we find and whatnot. And like, we're 10, 12 days out, I think it was at that point. So like we bumped into Rob at the PI, and this was probably like Tuesday, Wednesday. And I was like, hey, like, any word on an opponent? Like, I thought you had something lined up. He goes, yeah, like, they really haven't brought anything to me. Don't really know what's gonna happen. And then Tyson, like, the next day was like, all right, like, they gave me these names. Like, we'll figure out, like, what it is. And, like, Matsumoto was like, they're like, oh, he's in.
Yeah.
So they basically was like, Rob, let's do it. And he was just like, all right.
He put on
good.
a masterclass.
He was so ready.
That was such a good fight.
It was just like it's cool to see too, because like it reminded me of like Miami Rob Font a little bit. Like,
yeah,
where it's like he was coming off those 2 losses back in when he was fighting in Miami. It was like he came off the Aldo fight and then the Cheeto fight.
Yeah,
and the Cheeto fight was like just a really tough fight for him. Like I wasn't around then. Like that was before like he had taken a year off before Miami as well. So it was like had a kid. Like a lot of stuff happened in his life, but he missed weight that week, and it was just like not a good fight week. It was like tough go, and then Miami he was just so dialed in, and it was like that. It was crazy because like I had just gotten into like the whole MMA world and whatnot. Like, really getting into it, and like first now I see myself. I'm like in Miami with Rob, who's the guy I've watched for years now, and I'm like, dude, how did this happen? And then just to watch him and how they do it, it's like you just see that different level. It's insane. Like it was definitely one of those experiences where you're like, these people, like the guys that are there, like it takes takes a lot to get there.
Yeah.
Like even like their pad sessions, because I was with Connor before that, and they were training, sparring and stuff out there, and in Boston. So I'd go, like, that's kind of how I met them. I went up, Connor's like, oh, hey, I'm going to Spark. Like, come film over there. So I came up, and it was just like, you watch the progression of these guys through fight camp and whatnot, and how much better they get and sharper. Yeah. And then fight week, it was just like dialing in the nutrition, everything, where it's like literally just like each pound, like down to like precise, like a science, obviously. Like it really is when you have like high level nutritionists and stuff like they do, but it's like ready to go, primed to fight. Yeah. It's something different when like somebody's been off for a year, he just had it like Papa Font was our joke in the whole fight week, but it was like you could see he had that fire in there, and that was definitely something to watch. And like this past fight, it was like same thing, just the way he came out, those first two, like You know, the glove touch, little 1-2 that he threw.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know that was.
It was close. I
Yeah.
feel bad. He's like, I didn't mean to. He's like, he was probably just so zoned in. He's like, I need
Yeah.
to pressure this kid. I got to put it on this kid early. He's young. He's hungry. Like, you can't let these kids, you know, move forward on you. So
Yeah.
he went there, and I could just see just the way he was throwing and like the pressure at that last 10 seconds of that fight.
I know.
Too.
Just throwing.
Like, the crowd is going insane. How that didn't win fight of the night, I don't know. I
yeah.
have to strongly disagree. I think the fight of the night that they did give the bonus to, nowhere
Wasn't
near
it?
the kind of fight
Nah,
that
yeah.
one was. Maybe I'm biased, but
A little bit, but
sure.
that's.
And we
Hey.
watch it back. The crowd is a lot louder.
Yeah, nah. That was a great fight though.
That was good stuff.
Where did like this enter your life, like filming MMA? How did this come about?
It was kind of like basically like a whirlwind of a year. Like 2022. Yeah, it was like 2022 was kind of all over the place for me. Like, I was working at the bank at the beginning of the year, and then I was working with my brother, and then I kind of went off on my own, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But like, I'd always, you know, loved YouTube. Like, I used to like make like Pokemon videos and whatnot back in the day when I was a kid, but like got away from that in like middle school. But it was kind of like always bought cameras. Like, when I was in college, I had like old Canon like I think I had T5i. I think I had a T5i, and I'd just take photos and stuff like with my friends and whatnot. And I'd always been into that, so I'd like buy cameras and mess around with them. I had like a bunch of old like film cameras and whatnot that I had just bought over time. And I was like, you know, maybe I should figure out how to really use these things. Like, actually like put the time in and figure it out. Cause like I did like making some like, you know, promotional videos and reels and whatnot. I never really did any of that, like, and put stuff out. And I made a few videos like, you know, just before I really got into it, and like just on my phone, and they like did pretty well. I was like, this is actually pretty fun. So decided, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go in on this. So I was like delivering Got You at the time. So I was doing that and working at the Dog Mill, rest in peace.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, that I worked there
Place
for
is
like
a classic.
forever. Like, since I was like literally 16, I worked there, and then you know they just closed a few months back. But I was working there. I'd leave there, go do Got You at night, and then I sold the 2 cameras I had. Basically, I just got up enough money so I was like, I want to buy a video camera, something a little better for video, because I'm like, I want to do video. So grinded that out, and then I spent, it was like $500 on the full-time filmmaker course, because I was like, I need to like invest in myself. Like, I gotta like put money like down where I'm like kind of hold myself accountable. And then I printed out a sheet of paper with like 10,000 squares on it, and I was like, 10,000 hours. Like, that's literally what I put down. So every day I'd go, I'd work, I'd do some delivery driving, I'd get home, I'd pull up the full-time filmmaker, watch as many videos as I could before like I started falling asleep. And then I'd go write on my piece of paper, I'd mark off the boxes, like, how many hours am I putting in? Like, you know, give yourself that motivation where it's like, I want to fill this row kind of thing. So that's kind of what I did for probably about 2 months, I'd say, like, where I was like just saving, working, watching the videos. And once I kind of had enough money, I bought a Canon M50 at the time. And that was like my first like video camera, like 4K kind of thing. And I was going to KO in New Bedford, which you're very familiar with KO. So all the boys there and whatnot. So I was like doing the grappling class and whatnot, and I'd hang out after, and when they did Muay Thai, and just like shoot some clips. So like before I got the camera, I was doing it with my phone, then I got the camera. So I was like doing that kind of thing, following them to their smokers, posting on like the KO Instagram. Like, they didn't have an Instagram, so I just made it. And I just like put clips up. So I was like, yeah, we'll see what happens, you know? And some of them did well, and I was like, all right, like, I'm getting somewhere. Like, it kind of gave me a little more reinforcement as I went, like, where it was like, okay, like, let me try this. All right, this is working, that's working. And then Connor actually would go to KO as well, and he had just fought in August. So this kind of like me really getting into it was like June, July. You know, I had a trip to Hawaii planned, like, that was like a year in advance. So I kind of want to do some video there. So that kind of also sparked it. So that was July. And then August, Connor fought on the Contender Series against Francis Marshall. That was about when I bought my camera. So then like 2 months after that, after I'd been shooting, he came into the gym. And just shot a couple clips of him, and he was like, "Oh, you can't post any of this. I'm actually on suspension right now from my fight because like,
oh really?
Because of like medical suspension because it was a war that was like, his first war was the first time he ever went out of the first round. Like honestly, first minute. Like I think maybe he had one fight before that. He went past a minute.
Yeah.
So like, he was like, yeah, I can't post it, but like that was really it. And then continued with the stuff with KO, and then I just kind of branched out from there.
Yeah.
And tried whatever. And then it was like January of 23, shot him a DM. And then I was like, hey, like, he was like, oh, I'm doing open mat in my basement. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty sick. Like, I was like, I kind of want to just go roll at the open mat. Like, I've been like rolling a lot. I'm like, I want to go like try it out, like see new people, whatnot. And I was like, oh, but like, have you had any like thought of like doing some like YouTube, Instagram, like any kind of like video stuff? Because so I was doing it at the time, and he was like, no, I haven't really thought of it, but like I'm definitely down. Like he's like, that's cool. And then he was like, you free on Sunday? Come by. So I came by, like put a little video together, like no gi video, and then next thing you know is like 2 weeks later was when I went to sparring with him, like with the cartel guys. So like really met Connor. That was like January 15th, and then like February 1st, I'm like driving up to Boston with him, to his sparring session, like filming all these guys. And then like the next week I made a video of that sparring session, and it was just like, I look back on it, it's so funny because like how different like I edit now and like how much more I know, but like back then it was just like, hey, let's make something, you know what I mean? So I threw it together, and it's like the guys, the cartel saw it, they enjoyed it, they were like, oh, it's like really good, like how much does he charge, like whatnot, like started asking. Like I never really pushed anything, like that's kind of how I've always been. I'm like, I don't want to chase anybody, I don't want to push myself on anybody. If you want to, like, feel free to come to me, like no problem. Like I'm not gonna like try to like pull you in or anything. Like I'm just gonna let it happen as it does, like if you really want to do it. So Connor goes and he fights Combat Zone, which is actually the first MMA fight I ever fought. Was Dana White's looking for a fight.
Okay.
Combat Zone at Encore Casino. Like I remember getting there. I'm in the lobby. We're about to go to Connor's room. Dana White's like right in the lobby down there, like talking to like the card vault guy, like right in there. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, how is this happening right now? Like it was like one of those moments where I'm like, this can't be real. Like I actually just come from another shoot in my other job, like, and I like finished that up, drove to Encore, got there, and like Connor's like in the room, and he's just like super calm, like wicked chill. Like, I'm just like, and I'm literally freaking out. Like I'm so anxious. I'm like sick to my stomach. I'm like, never have I been like, and even though I've only known him for a couple months at this point, like I'd spent a lot of time with him up to that, like, interviewed him multiple times, and like, you really get to know somebody pretty quick when like basically like immersing yourself into like their life, where you're like really trying to like find the little things, where it's like what's driving them and that. So it was just like super calm what goes out there, and like I'm freaking out the whole time. If like I go back and I watch the footage, and like my hands are so shaky, everything gets the job done, and that was kind of it, like where it was just like the momentum started rolling from that day. And it was just right after that fight, next thing I know, I'm like, they're like, oh, Connor, like you got to come to the back. So like they take us through the back of the locker room and like bring us around like for the show. I'm like, oh, like he's going to talk to Dana. Like, all right. So I got my camera and whatnot, and like the sound guy's like out in front of the door, and one of the camera guys is there. And I was like, I had my camera. I was like, can I bring this in? He goes, I wouldn't. I was like, oh. I'm like, all right. So I walk in, like I leave my camera out there, and he stays out there, and I like go in the room. And I stand there, and it's like Matt Serra, Dean Thomas, Dana, like all standing
all
there.
The goats.
I'm like, one, I need to go on the other side of this. I can't be in the shot. Like, I don't belong here. Like, I'm like, I just came into this thing 2 months ago. Just stood off to the side and just like, just hearing Dana say that to him, I'm like, dude, how did I end up here? Like, where it's just like, who knows where this is gonna go? And like, obviously, it's gone a lot further than like just that. That was just the first moment. That was just like, hey, like stuff's happening here. Like where it's like, there's a story here, And I always had a feeling just based off who he was. Like I'm like, he's already a story, like he's combat controller, Air Force veteran, like 1% of the 1% in the Air Force, and now he's the 1% of the 1% in MMA. Like there's not many people like that. So it's just like, even before he made it to the UFC, I'm like, just him being able to do the first part, I'm like, that's already interesting enough. And then for him to do what he's done now, it's crazy. Because like right after that, Rob's like, hey, what are you doing beginning of Miami? And then next thing I know, I'm in Miami for Rob's fight week, and I'm like, I've been to 2 UFC fights in my like 2 MMA fights in my life.
Yeah.
I went to Combat Zone, Cage Titans, and then next thing I know, I'm in Miami for like one of the biggest UFC cards of that year. I'm like, what is going on? Like,
just fast-paced action.
Yeah, like sometimes it really does come down to like luck sometimes. Like, in reality, it's like I don't think like I think I was, I was doing the thing I was supposed to do, but like I don't think I was like miles better than anybody else. Like I think I know people who, had been shooting longer, editing videos longer. I just happened to be, put myself in the right place, and like I decided I wanted to do that. I'm like, I want to do some embedded style stuff. Like I'm gonna go figure out how to do it. So then I went and put myself there, and kind of worked out. So it's like kind of crazy to think like now it's like we're almost 3 years in, and it's like we're almost double-digit fight weeks and that kind of thing for the UFC alone. Never mind like all the other
events and whatnot,
and like different promotions. Like been to Karate Combat a couple times, which that was an interesting experience too. But like you don't really know what's gonna happen. Where it's like I shot that one DM.
I know.
In January, just because like in reality I was like, hey, I want to meet him, maybe do some jiu-jitsu, and I get to shoot in a different place. Like I wasn't thinking too deep on it, where I'm like, he might be like, all right, like one and done kind of thing. And like now we're like 3 years in, and it's like I've spent more time with Connor than I have with my parents over the past 2 years. That's for sure. Like it's crazy to think. Like definitely worth shooting your shot sometimes. Sometimes it's one DM, and it's like it may not seem much at the beginning, but like a year goes by, 2 years go by, and like you're still in that situation where it's like it's still growing. You don't really know where a lot of those experiences will take you, and sometimes you get to go to some pretty sick places. That's for sure.
I remember filming my first fight with Miguel, and I was shitting bricks from the moment. I was just like, because I'd been to Cage Titans and just like watched it as a fan, but like them just like their PR team texting me and being like, oh, come around to the back, come through like security and whatnot. I'm just like, I'm here to shoot Miguel. Like I was just like shitting bricks, like not really knowing what's going on, and just like just like walking through and just like stepping into the octagon for the first time. By the way, I mean I talked about I just dropped the podcast with Miguel, and we were talking about how small the octagon is.
Cage Titans is so tiny.
It's so small. It's just like I remember just literally taking like I was in there alone for like half a second, and I just remember I took like 2 like strides into the middle of the octagon.
You're on the other side.
I was just like, holy shit, I'm like already in the middle of the octagon. So when I was like seeing those bigger guys get in there, I'm like, oh my god, it's like a Rock'em Sock'em robots. Like
it's like this is like the distance from
like it's like
they're like go and they're already in punching range.
This room isn't that much smaller than the octagon, so it's just like that was crazy. I remember just like being in the back, like taking that walk around the balcony, just like I was just like bugging out. Like I was just like, oh shit, this kind of feels like I'm walking out to go fight. And then like it was even more insane when I did Giannetti and Barrett, because I was just
that's a big fight.
It was just like
that's one of the biggest fights ever.
I just remember just like being in the back, and I talked about it before on an earlier episode. There was like right when they're about to walk up the stage, how there's that door that like you can see the crowd and shit. There was one of Barrett's like dudes like chilling right there and just being like, fuck you, Joe, you're a pussy. And I was just like, oh my god, this is just like, it was insane. It was like nothing. It was like no event I had ever went to before. And then like, I mean, how it is shooting there. And like I decided to go with like octagon side because I felt like that was going to be my best like shot. And it was probably one of the bigger mistakes I had ever made.
Very difficult to shoot under the guy shooting above.
Yeah, it's just like
tight squeeze under there.
And I had already done it with Miguel, and I like knew, but like they had put me on the opposite side of what I'd done. Because like the first time they gave me pretty much like a chair, like where the judges sit, so I could sit back and kind of I was like, I can do this. But then I was just like on one knee. I have this side I have Team Barrett, this side I have Team Giannetti, and I'm like getting mixed signals in my head while I'm trying to like film. I was like, oh my god, this is a disaster.
Yeah.
But like looking back on it, it was such an insane experience. The event that was like you talk about energy in the event in these events, and it's just like there's like some crazy fights that like Ozzy Martin versus Jaden Curley. That crowd was
that was
fucking
insane.
nuts. That was probably the biggest amateur fight that I had ever seen.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest amateur fight like in recent history for Cage Titans.
Definitely.
But yeah, I remember doing my first fight and just being like no idea what to do and just kind of just like going with the motion. And then it was a like razor close split decision. It was when Miguel fought Keepers, and it was just like it was this
That
close.
was like I'm like with the elbow. How are they judging the elbows? How are they judging the takedowns?
Yeah.
How, like we're like like where like you picking straws at.
It was just like so, and I was just like
both of them.
The whole time I was kind of thinking about the first couple like seconds of the fight. I didn't know if Miguel had gotten knocked down or he had tripped because he fell right in front of me, and I couldn't tell if it was just like kind of a tumble back, but like he did get hit like when he fell. So I was just like thinking about that the whole time. And there was the whole Andy, he likes to put the showmanship on his announcing and whatnot. So the long pause right before the decision, I was like not being able to move in that moment when, cause like I'm so biased at this point. I'm like, yo, that was Miguel's win. I'm like so hyped, like a fan while I'm just doing this shit. So I was just, as soon as he fucking said his name, I was just like, I had to keep myself stone cold,
like just
and
not getting
just
to it.
like
That's always the hardest part too. Like when you are like with Connor's first fight, he hit a knock, he like hit the kid with a, I think it was a hook or something like that, and he just like put the guy down. It was like, let's go. Like I'm like getting super excited. I'm like, oh wait, hold on, I'm shooting. Like I gotta hold the camera still. Like you get too excited, and then like luckily like I've gotten used to it now, where it's like that fight I was able to compose myself, where it's like he gets the finish, and you're like, literally I could see Dana through on the opposite side of like my frame, where it's like literally straight through the cage, right where he like choked him out. Just on the other side, Dana's right there. I'm like, dude, like this is huge. Like you know how big that moment is for him. So it's like compose yourself, and like luckily I was able to like stay like composed. He hopped up on the cage and was able to like get a shot up there, and like I got lucky too after the fight. Like when he was giving his like when they announced him, I just sprinted in there, and he didn't even know it was me. Like he was like completely just like adrenaline rush, like basically blacked out like after the fight, just like everything's going crazy, and like he came over with his mouthpiece like right in front of my camera, and he goes, oh, that was you. I was like, good, okay, I went to the right camera, like kind of thing. It's just like, and it's just like you gotta stay composed, like, oh, it's happening, like let's go. And
you just get so excited in that moment because like being an MMA fan filming MMA, it's like it's very hard to keep your composure, but like at the same time it's just like you just get so involved in it,
so invested.
It's like, just like,
especially when it's your guy. Like you're watching their journey throughout this. Like you've watched them from when they basically got the call. Like when I started like filming with Connor, the initial fight, he had no fight lined up, and then he had one lined up for CES, originally, and then Dana White's looking for a fight was coming, and it was Calvin's promotion. So Connor's like, hey, Tyson, get me on that card. And then he ended up being the main event for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I started when, he wasn't even in camp.
Yeah.
And then you watch that journey and the sparring and everything of him getting ready, and you see like all the work they do, the strength and conditioning, all the extra steps like that goes into it. And it's like for 15 minutes.
I know.
At the most.
Yeah.
At the most.
Could be a lot less.
Like you hope you make it a lot, like there as a fighter, you hope it's like you're the one who makes it a short fight.
Yeah.
But like when you think about it, it's like months of preparation just for that, and like you watch all that happen, and then you see like your person, like the guy you're following, that cage shuts, and you're like, all right, like let's just hope everything go, like all that is like worth it. And I think it's always worth it, win or lose, because you look like Connor lost his first Contender Series, he learned from that in the second Contender Series. Like that's a good example of like very excited. Like you watch, like I made one of the videos for the Cartel channel was about that fight, and it's like you could hear like let's go, like all the person yelling the whole time, just me in the background, like every time he lands a takedown. It's just like, it's like cool to see, like especially when you watch them prepare like that and they're doing the things that you've seen them do like rep after rep in training, where it's like hitting that takedown over and over again, like landing that combination, like, you know, cornering them off like against the cage and like actually landing like the tight elbows, and, like, the knees. You know, he hadn't landed a head kick in that fight, and it was just like, it's hard to contain yourself, like, when you're like 100%. Trying to do your job. You like the guy that you've been following that you want, like, you know, to be as successful as possible is, you know, showing out. Like they're doing the thing. It's like the fan in you just bubbles up every single time.
It's hard for that not to come out though. I remember doing Miguel's most recent fight against Anthony Pike. That was the first time I got to experience like filming a knockout, and it was such a sick knockout. It was just like perfect crucifix, just landing the elbows.
Elbows is the best. Like, I love the crucifix.
It was
That's the best.
It was so nice, and I was just like, I got the whole shot. It was perfect. He finished him off. He walked right to, he didn't know, he never knows where I'm gonna be, but he walked perfectly right in front of me, and he was like, I was just like shooting up. He like flipped his mouthpiece off, double birds. I was like, this is I was so hyped. And then I remember just turning the camera off before walking back into the cage for raising his hand. And I'm just like, I kind of blacked out, because obviously, you know, everyone who's sitting on the floor is gonna see you walk over, and I was just like, come on! I was so hyped up, and I probably looked insane, but
it doesn't even matter at that point.
No.
It's like no, nobody needs to know how you feel, and you can feel however you want.
The adrenaline dump after leaving those events, though.
And it's crazy.
Oh my god! Yeah, we do.
We feel that. We weren't the one in a car crash.
No.
Like, we were just like, we're invested, like emotionally and like, you know, mentally. Like, you're there. Like, you're really like, you've just like they have, like, you're playing all the different scenarios in your head and whatnot, and you're like hoping whatever. And then you're feeling exhausted and just like, holy crap, like I just went through a lot. Like these guys literally go through like a car crash every fight. Like especially after like Conor's second contender series fight, like seeing like them after, where it's just like, you know, taking leg kicks and stuff like that, having a heart, like not being able to like, you know, walk normal like for a couple days or weeks, however long it is. It's like you get another level of appreciation for what they do, which I feel like you don't always get, like, as just a normal fan when you just go to an event or you just watch the fights. Like, you see the 15 minutes. And I think, like, that's, like, one of the things for me where it's just, like, I want to show beyond those 15 minutes. Like, like, when I look at the grand scheme of things, those 15 minutes are, you know, the most important. Obviously, you want to win the fight. But, like, when it comes to, like, the full, like, you know, story for them, it's, you know, that's just the pinnacle of it. That's just like the climax of it. There's like that whole journey beforehand that like people don't usually get to see, that like just adds to all that, you know, emotion and energy that goes into it, and you understand why these guys get as fired up as they can. Yeah, it's insane what they do, and it'd be hard to get me in a cage anytime ever. No. But
hell no.
It's insane what they do. It's just. You learn a lot about, like, you know, discipline, pushing through, and like dealing with pain for sure.
Yeah, like, those guys are fucking nuts.
Probably, I don't know many of them that fight 100% healthy either. Like, all, like, you're simulating car crashes in training, and then you have to go into one also. Like, I'm sure things pop up in between that they don't even talk to you about. Like, I usually am pretty like, I know what's going on for the most part. Like, I'm pretty, you know, plugged in when it comes to like, oh, like, how you feeling? Oh, like, is this all right? That all right? But who knows what they're not talking about that they don't want you to worry about.
There's always those little things
like,
that
you never know.
Yeah, I feel that. I'd always, that was like one of the main things I was nervous about going into my first like fight, was just like, oh, am I like in the way? Am I like, is me being in front of this guy? Because like, I mean, obviously, you know, the back room, it's not like every guy's getting their own locker room with their team. It's like you get a mat, and then you get a bunch of chairs around it, and so it's just like, is me standing in front of this guy right now filming someone else fucking this guy's mental up. Like, that's just like all the little things that I went over in my head, and then I come to realize that just like everyone in there is just chilling for the most part. It's just like,
and you get better peripheral as you shoot too.
Yeah,
like you really notice it where it's like you see that guy who's pacing a lot in the back. It's like, all right, don't go over there. Like he's one of those guys. Like if you watch like Chris Moutinho when he's like prepping for a fight, he doesn't stop moving for 3 hours. Like he's just always pacing. Like he won't go like super hard up until like when he's really ready to warm up, but he paces for the whole beginning of the fight. He'll just walk down back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to the warm up area, like, and not stop until he fights. And it's like, you don't stand in the way of Chris. Like he'll just walk through you. Like he's like he's in the zone. He's ready to go to war. Like
he was pacing the whole time last event against
I've
Cupcakes.
All the fights of his that I've shot, not once has he not been pacing. Like honestly, combat zone he doesn't pace as much because it's a smaller locker room.
Yeah.
So like, but he definitely is like always moving, like really in the zone. Then you got somebody like I'm trying to think of a good example. Like Tom honestly was a good example. Like Tom's very chill. Like his filmed a few of his fights now, and he literally just chills out, relaxes, jokes, like good vibes all the way up until he's like ready to warm up, and then it's like everybody knows when he starts warming up, it's just shut everything down and let him do his thing. Like
I was so pumped to watch his last fight. That was so good, bro. Oh my god.
Tom's a killer, that's for sure. He's another one where it's like you like that room that's out there, like all these guys where it's like Tom, Nick, Connor, like Mitch, all these guys just knocking on the door. Like Nick's already been there. Tom's I think knocking on the door of the UFC. Like he's super talented. Like he's a grinder too. Like he works his butt off. Like
that was a tough guy to put down too.
Yeah, and
tough
it's
guy.
Crazy too because like they like that was the plan too. It's like they like all these combinations I've seen them warm up and everything, and just to see it happen, you're like, damn, like to be able to execute like that is impressive too. Like it was awesome to see. That was definitely one of those where I was like, think this is his coming out party. Tyson, that's exactly what Tyson said before the fight. He goes, I feel like it's gonna be Tom's coming out party. Like he's had some tight wins, some good wins. Like I don't like the one at Combat Zone. It was like a short notice at 155. Like he hadn't fought since like November, and it was like May, so it was like 6 months. And he was like, I just want to fight. And he goes and like TKOs are doing the first round. Then he got married in September, so he's like, I can't fight again like until the end of the year. Yeah. So then he finally gets that last fight and put on a show. What
a show too. That was
he had to hold himself back. He's like, I was getting a little excited. Like, he's like, I really want to do it, but it was coming. Like you could tell like from the that initial exchange, like he was finding what he wanted and got the job done.
Do you like black out when you're filming fights? Like, are you like fully there? Because I kind of like catch myself. Like, my first fight that I filmed was the whole 15 minutes, and then I did for Joe's fight it was the whole 25.
Yep.
And then Miguel's second fight that I filmed for him,
that one third round, right, or second round?
His finish was third round. I'm pretty sure.
You got over 10 minutes on that one too.
Yeah. So, like, I can't like ever really like remember because like obviously I'm so dialed in on the screen that it's I kind of feel like I didn't watch the fight. Like the only thing I can really
it's tough to really like for me, I'm always just trying to make sure like I'm in the best position to like be able to watch it back. You know what I mean? So you can see what actually happened. And it's like, do I need to know exactly what combination he landed right now? Not really. Like, do I need to make sure that it like the lights like correct and I'm exposed in focus to make sure that when I watch it back I can see everything clearly? I'm like, that's kind of where my focus is too. Like obviously like certain like things stick out to you though, like where it's like they're kind of like working this combination, like, oh, that's that one, like you've seen it a bunch. But like when it's like messy all over the place, like scrambles, those kinds of things, it's like it's impossible to like follow it. You're just like, I need to make sure they're in the frame. Like I
mean, the worst thing for me is whenever they're going to like if just filming cage side is like when they go to the corner, like right where you are. It's just like you're pretty much just filming half the crowd, and like it's so difficult to
I got lucky with Valdina's because I was like cage side, which I don't really try to shoot cage side much anymore. I shot a couple, like I shot Joe's Haley fight and Valdina's Noah Abdul fight. Both of those like same spot, cage side, and he luckily when he knocked him down and he ended up getting him over to the left of me. So he's like one like stanchion over. I was like, oh, thank God. So I was able to get the whole thing. I zoomed out, could fit the whole thing in the frame. But I was like, dude, if you would have just went right here, I'd be like, not much I can get here.
Yeah,
which like that's always a tough part. But definitely been lucky with that. Now I usually, especially Cage Titans, I usually go like just behind, where all the floor seats are.
Yeah.
And I'd prefer to just have the whole shot, and I like the crowd. One of my favorite shots ever was Tom when he got his TKO at Combat Zone. And, I usually mic up the corner. So I just have like Sean Farley, who's his boxing coach. He's like old school Boston boxing coach.
Yeah.
Like, Haverhill Inner City Boxing is his gym. Like it's sick. I shot there a couple times. It's a sick gym in there. Like just old school, just like Boston. It just like brings you back. It's like super gritty, but like it just shoots so well because windows, big ceilings, all that. But he's like, Tommy, them feints are driving him crazy. And then he feints, and then he just hits him with the right hand, and then just TKOs him. And I'm like, I'm zoomed in, and then like I watch him, he hops up on the cage, and then I took like 2 steps back as I was zooming out. I was like, you know what, like whatever. If in the shot I'm zooming out, like whatever. And like the whole crowd around him, everybody's going crazy. His whole squad's to the left. They're all going wild, and just like get that energy in it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, cage side's cool and all, but it's like every promotion has their cage side guy. What I mean? They probably put all their guys cage side. Like it's not often where a lot of like promotions really think about like on the production level where it's like getting those different angles, or like a UFC. Like you wonder why the UFC stuff looks so good. Is like they have a guy in the long lens that's probably like one section up. They have the guy that's over on top of the cage. They have the guy that's cage side. And they have the other guy cage side that's 3 rows back. And like this guy follows them around and like focuses on the corner. Like they work on all these different angles to make sure they have it. So for me, it's like the best kind of option where it's like I can go cage side and get close, but it's like they're probably going to have a shot of that. That's going to be the first thing that goes up on Instagram. Everybody's going to see it. So it's like that shot's going to exist. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, what about the energy around? Like, what makes that moment so big? Like, where's his family? Where's the crowd? Like, where are the other things that, add to that moment?
Yeah.
And try to get that in there too. Like, I think that for me has just been more important. Like, I've realized, like, when I look back, like, a lot of stuff's always up close, like, up tight. And, like, it's like, everybody knows the fight's going on. Everybody's going to watch the fight. Everybody's seeing the fight. Like, you can get the most crazy close-up angle, but it's like, all right, this is a guy punching a dude in the face versus like, oh, this is the guy silencing the away crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The home crowd, like, where it's like, that's a different level where it's like when you can see the whole thing and just see people like, oh, like, seeing their guy lose, seeing their guy win, like, adding that into it, I feel like it just adds to the emotion of it and whatnot. So, kind of glad I've switched off the cage side kind of stuff because it's like it's cool, but also it gets annoying sometimes because you're just stuck in one spot. I like to move too much.
I know.
It's hard for me to settle in and just be like, all right, I'm gonna stay in this one spot and just hope things work out for me. Like I want to have some sort of control and at least be like, all right, if I move to the left, I could see through this whole part of the cage versus like, oh, I'm just going to have this pole next to me on my left. So my left side's just not going to work. It's like I'd rather be able to just take 2 steps to the left and then get out of the way of this dude who stood up in front of me or the pole that's in front of them. So I
did with the balcony on the last event.
I like the balcony.
And
I've been liking where you've been shooting from. That's definitely a good spot because you at least get in there where it's like you get to see a different angle.
I don't know. It's just like I feel like there's just so much that can be built off of it from that angle and just like and that too. I mean,
it's a big part of it.
It's kind of a pain in the ass because like there's like little things that like obviously like you can't like expect with the crowd. Like I had a dagger put in my back last event, but when last time Carter Whitty fought that switch kick knockout, I got him full perfect shot of him landing the kick. The second that they're dropping, some guy like stands up and puts his hand up in front of my lens. And I was like, that fucked up the entire shot because by the time his hand was out of the way, he was already getting like pulled off of him and shit like that. And I was just like, I don't even know if I can make this shit work. but it was.
There's always a way to make it work for sure.
Yeah. I was able to like squeeze it in like just like with a quick cut thing, but
yeah.
It's always like fun to like find those new angles, and I think that's like one of my favorite ones to shoot so far, because like the only really spot that you're missing is kind of that like close corner that's like the closest part of the cage to you, but like for the most part you can get like everything from there.
Yeah, it's when you're shooting an event, it's tough as a single camera. Like I look back, like there was I did a Combat Zone 82. I did like a full like recap. It was like a 27-minute video of like the 5 fights that went on. It was just me, like shooting the whole thing, and it's like there's so much that I ended up missing, like because I'm trying to get different angles and switch things up, like. But then when you go back and you look at the whole thing, and you're like, all right, like the moments, even if I'm zooming in, zooming out, slightly out of focus, like the moment's the moment, like you can still use it. So it's like you don't have to worry as much about like having the perfect shot when it's just you. Yeah. But that's where it comes in, like when like. For example, like I shoot a lot of weddings too. Like that's what I was doing like full time, you know, while I was getting this all off the ground. And it was like, we have 5 cameras for a wedding. Wedding isn't people fighting in a cage, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot like more structured. You know what's going to happen. Oh, they're going to dance. This is the dance floor. This is where they're going to be. Like this is like, obviously it's like, all right, there's the cage. They're going to go fight in there. But it's like, yeah, but this dude might get knocked that way, knocked this way. This guy's going to go crazy in the crowd. Like, you're able to control it all, and we're still using 5 different cameras, and we're still not getting all the shots. Like we still get frustrated trying to put all that together to make a smooth edit, because sometimes little things happen. They go a little too far to the right of the frame, left of the frame. Like there's so many like little factors that go into like shooting it, and like especially solo. And it's tough because it's like you gotta always be rolling. You gotta hope, like you gotta constantly be focused on your frame and not allowing other factors that are around you to like affect it, and like try to like mitigate that. But sometimes it's like somebody's just a jerk and is just gonna stand up in front of you and not sit down. Like
it's every time
it happens. I have a shot. This is like similar to you with the hand going up. So Ross Levine, his last fight, so like he retired after this fight. So he goes out. It was in Austin, Texas. Main event of the Karate Combat. He's fighting, you know, pretty good guy. The guy like 12, like he's like 12-4 or something like that. So like MMA experience, like a lot of that, like. And he's walking out, and he always does like the thumb up thing. Like that's like his thing. He stands there and he just gets fired up. Like he's one of those dudes that really gets fired up before a fight. And I have the shot perfectly framed. Like I'm like talking rule of thirds, everything. Like the corners of the pit are like right into the corner. He's perfectly lined up. He's going. I have it like zoomed out just enough so I have headroom where his hand's gonna be. Like I know exactly the shot I'm going for. I'm like, I have it. He starts doing it, and his wife,
oh my god,
super excited. They have the flag for one of their sponsors. Puts her hands up, and she just happened to be like slightly to the right of me. Like it wasn't like I was directly behind her or anything, but she goes like that and just covers the frame. The whole frame is just the back of this flag, and I was like, of course.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like you get the 1/2 second of him like hitting, you know, the top of his like his walkout, and then it's like boom, covered, and I just left it in there. Yeah. So I'm like, it's funny. Like to me, I'm like, that's the reality of what it is shooting an event. Like if I go and you try to like, AI Photoshop whatever, like figure it's like make it not happen. It's like it's just the reality of it. It's a raw moment where people are going crazy. There's emotions everywhere. It's just part of
everyone's fired up.
Like the bunch of people gonna go fight. You know what I mean? There's a lot of just built up energy there. So it's like things pop in and out and whatnot. But that was definitely one of those moments where I was like, oh.
Doesn't help that normally whenever you're at a fight event, at least 80 to, I mean, I might be selling it short here, but 80 to 90% of the crowd is fucked up beyond belief, just drinking for 6 hours. Yeah. And some of them even pregame. You know how the strip gets bumping.
The
like
Plymouth crowd is another level.
A wild bunch.
Yeah, and I know some of the wildest. I know a few of them that are the wildest that go there, and they start noon, whatever.
Yeah,
and they go right through
pregame
the day.
bash all the way through, just like I don't know.
It's crazy, and they keep going after. They're at the tavern after. I'm like,
yeah, that's.
Like, they asked me to go to the tavern after I'm like, no, I'm going home and going to bed.
Yeah,
like,
I'm like falling asleep on the drive home.
Like I got to backup footage. I got to charge batteries.
Yeah.
And, like I want to like have everything ready to go for the next day if I need it. So
Yeah.
it's just like,
all right. Well, we're about to hit our time frame, so we're gonna
right.
cut us off here. You want to promote your Instagrams and stuff like that? Just
if you want to follow Niko.Safioleas.
Put that in the description.
Safioleas.
Okay.
Very hard name to spell. I don't expect anybody to know how to spell it.
Yeah.
Also follow the New England Cartel YouTube channel, Connor, the Controller MMA YouTube channel. Follow Connor, Tom, Mitch. Mitch is fighting April 12th in Miami. Who else we got fighting? Carlos is tomorrow, so probably won't be up in time. But Carlos is fighting Combat FC, defending his belt there. So got a bunch of guys coming up. Definitely just any of the the local fighters. Support your local fighters, everybody, because not an easy living, that's for sure.
Yeah, no. Hey, and they deserve it too.
Yeah,
tough
for
guys.
sure.
So, thank you.
Appreciate
you.
Thank you for having me.
Take care, everybody.